In this video, we will be creating a beautiful interactive marketing dashboard complete with date selectors and dynamic data. So you can see if I come up here to the top and change this date to last month, all of our data changes based on the new time period. And if I change it to the year, it changes again. And one of the cool things that we did with this dashboard tutorial is we actually made the graphs dynamic as well. So let's dive into it. Okay, so now we're going to start designing the dashboard. So we have our color codes for the various items we're going to be doing here, and we have our dashboard tab. So I'm going to copy our canvas background color and go to our dashboard tab, and I'm going to skip 3 rows because that's going to be our heading, and I'll show you that more later. But we're just going to take this and we're going to put this color across the whole thing here. So we'll do that, and we'll go back to the top here, and I'm just going to turn off grid lines. So I'm going to go to View, Show, and turn off grid lines. So now we can see our darker background color here. And the next thing I'm going to do is I just want to start creating our sections for our dashboard. So I'm going to grab our sections background color. I'm going to copy that. Now, I'm not sure how wide and how big this is going to be yet, but for now, we'll make it something like this, maybe something around there. And let's just paste that in, okay? And let's start with that, and we'll design this first section first. So the idea is that we're gonna have cards in all of these. So looking at this, I'm thinking each card will be about 2 wide. So we're gonna need a couple more rows of this here. So let's paste this like this. Let's start with that. Okay, so now we're gonna make our cards, and I think I'm gonna make this about 3 rows down. Actually, we'll make it 4 rows down and 2 columns wide, and we're just gonna make these white. So I'm gonna do that, and we wanna put a little border on these. So I'm gonna go grab my border stroke color, and for the moment, I'm just gonna paste it up here, and then we're gonna add a border here. We're gonna make it thin, and for the color, should be this one here. Add that. There we go. So we can get rid of this. And let's highlight the top section here. Let's do Format, Merge Cells, Merge Horizontally. And then let's go to our Settings tab, and let's grab our Metric Accent 1, and let's copy that. And let's paste that there. And then let's call this one Raw Leads. We're going to change this font to, let's try Roboto. Let's make it bold. And for the color of this, we're going to use our custom text color here of this. And let's center this. There we go. And then let's take this, let's do Format, Merge Cells, and we'll just do Merge All. And for now, I'm just going to type a number in here. And we're going to do Format, Number, get rid of the decimals. Let's center this. Let's make it Roboto font. Let's bold it. Let's vertically align it in the center, and let's bring up that size to like 24, and there we go. And I think what I'll actually do is let's cut this and move it over 1. Yeah, let's do that. And let's resize this column here to, let's try 10. There we go. Now let's copy this. Let's skip 1 and paste it. And this metric is going to be appointments. And let's go to our Settings tab, and let's grab our second metrics accent color, which is this lighter green color. So we'll go up and we'll change the color of this to that. And let's change this text color to this darker green. There we go. And then let's resize this. Let's try 40 and see what this looks like. Let's actually try 30. There we go. I like that. Then let's copy this, skip 1, paste it over. Then let's resize this to 30. And actually, I want to resize this one, I think, to about 25, something like that. And then let's resize this one to 25. There we go. And now let's change this one to appointment conversion. And this one is actually going to be a percentage. And I'm just going to type in 50%. And we'll leave it like that for now. And let's change this color. Let's use our metric 3 accent color. which is the really light pink, and let's make that text the darker pink. There we go. And we can actually copy this entire row here. We'll skip 2 in between and paste that in like that. And let's see what this one looks like with our 4th accent color, which is this really light tan color. And then let's make the text the darker tan color. And then let's make this one the blue and this one here the green. Something like that, just to break it up a little bit. And we'll call this one marketing cost, and this one cost per lead, and this one cost per appointment. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is just leave 2 of these bottom rows our section background color and turn the rest back to our canvas color, which is this here. There we go. Now we got our first nice looking section there. And let's actually move this whole thing over to the left. So I'll hit Control X, bring this over to column B, and boom, we'll paste it there. And let's just extend out our canvas color. So let's get a big selection here, go all the way down to the bottom and do that, and go back up to the top here. There we go. And now what I will do is actually going to resize this column to 25. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this entire section here, come over to column M and paste that in. And now we have 2 sections for our dashboard here. And now we can customize these for the other metrics that we want to track. So we will do sales dollars. We'll do close rate. We will do sale per lead, or SPL. We'll do cost per sale and marketing cost %. And now I just want to go through and format all these appropriately. So this is formatted right. This is cost per appointment should actually be a dollar value, and we'll do no decimals. Cost per lead, we'll do a dollar value, no decimals, and marketing cost, we'll do a dollar value, no decimals. Sales we'll leave like that. Sales dollars we'll do as a dollar value with no decimals. Close rate will be a percentage. Sale per lead, we'll do that as a dollar value, no decimals as well. Cost per sale, same thing. And our marketing cost percentage will be a percentage. For now, I'm going to put a placeholder here because these sections here will actually be 4 graphs for our dashboard, but we won't actually create those until we put our data in. But I will go ahead and format it our blue color, and we'll do the same here. And these will just act as placeholders until we get our data built up. And now we can actually get rid of these down here. We don't need these. That was just some dummy data. And I think what we'll do just to make this look a little bit nicer is I'm going to delete one of these rows, and I'm going to resize this row to be 25. And the reason being is that this one is 25, and I think it just looks a little nicer to the eye like that. So these are perfectly even sized. So now we are ready to bring in our data so we can start populating our dashboard with real life examples and add in all the formulas to our dashboard to make it interactive and working. So what we will do is we will go down to the bottom here and we will add a new tab, and we will rename this to data. And I've prepared some sample marketing data here. So I'm just going to copy this, and this is just mock data, and we'll bring this in, and I will paste special values only. And then I'm just going to format this just to make the data table a little easier to read. So we'll highlight this with a background color and we'll bold that. And I'll click here and expand these out, and I'll resize all the number columns to 100, and we will center these. And actually, I'm going to resize this one to 100 as well. And we'll actually make this one bigger to fit the whole thing there. And now we got a good start. So looking at our dashboard, let's just go through these one by one. So the first thing we need to do is we need to count up the number of leads that we have in our data. So we are going to add a few formula cells to our data to make it easier to pull numbers to the dashboard. So the first thing I will do is add a column here for leads. And this will be the count of leads in our data. And for this, we're going to use a simple array formula and an if statement. So essentially what I want to do here is I'm going to type array formula, and then we're going to put in our if statement here. So I'm going to say if A2 does not equal a blank, give me 1, otherwise give me 0. And then all we have to do is adjust where I have A2 for the array formula. I'll just put a colon there, and then I'll put A. That way it goes down to the bottom of all of our data. And you'll see I close that out with 2 parentheses, and we'll just press enter here. And what you'll see by using an array formula, what this will do is it will actually check every bit of my data. So if I actually add more rows here, you can see that it went all the way down to the bottom of our data here. And it is looking to see if there's anything in column A. And if there's not, it's going to give us a 0. So essentially what this is going to do is count up all of our leads. So I'm going to center this. And another thing I want to do for our data table is I'm going to freeze the top row so our headings always stay there. So we'll go to View, Freeze, and we'll do up to row 1. And the other thing I like to do is just to color this orange. That way we know it's a formula, and when we paste in our data, we don't overwrite our formulas. So now if we go back to our dashboard tab, we could do a sum formula to now sum up all of our leads. So for example, if I just did a equals sum formula and clicked on our data tab and clicked on column F, that would give me the total number of leads. Now in this case, my actual data has 1,000 leads, as well as the text I had in there that was just a placeholder. So if I delete this out just so you can see that, if I do equals sum and go over to our data tab and select the leads column, it adds up to 1,000 leads. Now, one thing I would like to do to make this dashboard a little more dynamic, however, is to set up a date selector at the top. So that way I can view the current month or the current year or last month and some other common periods to view on my dashboard. So let's set that up. Okay, so now let's add a date selector to the top of our dashboard. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to insert a few rows here, because I want to make sure our main dashboard background is behind our date selector. And I'm actually going to copy some of our section color here up, and we need about 3 rows for this date selector. So here I'm going to type in period, and I'm actually going to merge these 2 cells, do merge horizontally, and then make that bold. And then I'm going to do start date and end date, and I will bold those 2 as well. And now we need to add what date selectors we would like to have. So ahead of time on our settings tab, I actually prepared what I want to have in our date selector. So for example, I want to view quick time periods like this year, this quarter, this month, this week, and even things like last month, last week, and more current things like today and yesterday. And I set these all up so that there would be a formula to calculate the start date and the end date. And it does that all based off of the current date, which is set up here. So this formula pulls today's current date in, and then each one of these formulas down below will grab the start date and the end date based on today's date. So you can go through and set these up, but these are simple date formulas that essentially pull the time periods that we want. Or you can actually grab a copy of this spreadsheet in the description if you would like. But if we head back over to our dashboard tab, we will do insert drop down, and we will do drop down from a range, and we will select the data range, and we will now go to our settings tab, and we will select all of our date options here, and then we will hit OK with all those selected. And the last thing I will change here under advanced options is, instead of the chip style, I'll change this to an arrow just because I like the way it looks a little bit better, and I will hit done. And now if we go back to our dashboard tab, you'll see the little arrow here, and that's showing that this is a drop down. And when we click on this, now we see our time periods. And one thing I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to copy this into column E as well. And I will actually merge these cells horizontally just to give our drop down and our dates a little more breathing room. Okay, so with those in place, now we need to base our start date and our end date off of this period selector. So before we create these formulas, I'll change this to this year. And then we're going to do a simple VLOOKUP from our settings tab to get it to pull our start date. So I'll do equals VLOOKUP, and I'll have it look up the period that we have selected here. And then we'll go to our settings tab, and we will select column D so that it finds the matching period in column D, and we will also include column E so that way it can pull the start date, and then we'll put comma 2 so that way it grabs the second column here, and then comma false, and we'll close that formula up and press enter, and now it pulls our start date for the year. And I'll just left align this, and then I'll do the same thing for our end date here. So we'll look up our period here, we'll go to our settings tab and do column D through F now because we want the end date, and then we'll do comma 3 because we want the third column, and then comma false, and we'll close that out. And now we have our end date, and we'll left align this as well. So with our date selector in place, we can now start creating the formulas for our dashboard that are dynamic based on our dates. However, one thing I noticed is in my mock data here, I don't have a date column of when the leads came in. So what I will do is I'm going to insert a column here, and I'll just call this date. Okay, so I've generated some random dates for our data, so I'll just paste this in here. And with real data, we would have our actual lead date, or the day that we got that lead. And there we go. With that in place, now we're ready to start doing some formulas. Okay, so let's come down to raw leads here, and we will do a sumifs formula. So we'll do equals sumifs, and we want it to sum the leads column of our data if the date column in our data is greater than or equal to our start date here and less than or equal to end date here. And I forgot that this here should have also been included here because this was our second criteria. And this is saying that we've had 999 leads this year. So my guess is that we probably have one lead in our data source that shows a lead date of 12/31, which hasn't happened yet. And with that formula, it's summing up 999 leads, even though we have 1,000 leads in our data. And that's because today is December 30th of 2024. And we do have a lead in our data source that has the date of 12/31, which hasn't occurred in this year yet. So that would make sense. If I go to this month, it says 90. So that's saying for the month of December 2024, there are 90 leads. So just to test this, if I do equals month and I grab the date here and copy that all the way down, and then I just type 12 here and I do equals sumif, this month equals 12, then give me the count of leads here, or the sum of leads here, and it equals 90, which is exactly what our dashboard says. So now we know that is right. So we can delete this here, and now we can do our next formula. Now in this case, since we're going to sum up appointments, to make this a little bit easier, I'm actually going to copy this entire formula, and we'll come over to this cell and let's paste that whole formula in. And for now, it's going to add up to the same amount, but all we will have to do is change our formula to, instead of summing leads, to sum appointments. So if we come back to our data here, we can delete this. We don't need this anymore. We need to get a count of the number of appointments. So we'll call this appointment count. And we will do another array formula here. So we'll do equals array formula. And we will say if column D equals yes, give me 1, otherwise give me 0. So this will tell us whether that was an appointment or not, and it will give us a 1 for that value. And we'll use the suggested autofill here, and we'll center this, and we will make this orange like our other formula columns. And now if we go back to our dashboard, we can change this from column G to column H because we want it to sum appointments. And there we go. So in December, we had 38 appointments. If I change it to this year, we had 391 appointments. Now our appointment conversion formula is pretty easy. This will give us our appointment set rate. We just do a simple formula that says equals the number of appointments divided by the number of raw leads. So for this year, our appointment conversion was 39.14%. If I change it to this month, it was at 42.22%. And if I look at the quarter, it was at 36%. So now we have our top 3 KPIs set up and ready to go. Okay, so now we want to do our marketing cost formula. So what I'll do is I will just copy one of these formulas up here and paste that in. And then we need to see what column our lead cost is in, which is column C. And all we need to do is change our formula to sum column C. And there we go, we have that. And now to calculate our cost per lead, all we got to do is take our $98,000 that we spent on leads and divide it by the 1,000 leads that we got. So we paid $99 per lead, and our cost per appointment would be the marketing cost divided by the number of appointments. And there we go. Now we can head over to the right side of our dashboard and do the same thing. So I will copy our appointments formula over into our sales KPI, and we will go to our data, and we see that we currently don't have anything that totals up the number of sales that we made. We have our sales dollars, but not the actual number of sales. So we need to create another formula on our data tab. So I'll actually copy this entire column over. And since I copied our formula over, we can just update this and say if E2 is greater than 0, because if it has a sales dollar amount, I want it to count it as a sale. So I will say, give me 1, otherwise give me 0. I'll press enter there. And we will just make that formula go all the way down to the bottom of column E. And there we go. And while doing this, I noticed that when I created this formula, I didn't actually make it an array. So I'm going to delete these just so we can keep our data consistent. And all I need to do is adjust this to go through all of column D. And boom, there we go. So now we'll change this to say sales count. And now we'll go back to our dashboard and change that formula to pull from column I, which is our sales count. And now we have our total number of sales. We'll copy this formula, go over to our sales dollars metric here, paste that formula in, go to our data column, and we see that revenue, sales revenue is in column E. So we will just change our sum here. Boom, there we go. And now our close rate formula will take our number of sales divided by the number of appointments that we ran to give our conversion rate on our sales appointments. So we have a 48.72% close rate. Our sales per lead, this should actually say sales dollar per lead, which is a good metric for a sales team, is the sales dollars divided by the raw leads. And that tells us for every lead that we get, we turn it into about $1,930 in sales. And our cost per sale will be our total marketing cost divided by the number of sales. So it costs about $518 in marketing to get one sale. And our total marketing cost percentage will be our marketing cost dollars spent divided by our sales dollars gained. And that means that we have a 5% marketing cost. So now we have the entire top part of our dashboard set up. And the cool part is that it is all dynamic, meaning as I change these date filters, it is updating the dashboard dynamically based on our data tab. Okay, so now we want to add some graphs to our dashboard. However, if we were just to use our data source to create the graphs, it wouldn't be dynamic and change with the date selectors we have at the top of our dashboard. So what we will do is set up a new section on our data tab that will allow us to run some formulas on our data to create the graphs that we want. So in this particular case, I first want to create a graph that shows me the sales dollars by our lead source to tell me how well each lead source is performing. So what we will do is we will go over to our data tab, and we could choose to do this on a different tab as well. But the first thing I want to do is grab everything in our lead sources column here, and we're just going to go out to column L here, and we're going to paste this in. And then what I want to do is I want to select all the data that's in this new section here, and I'm going to do data, cleanup, remove duplicates. And I'm going to remove those and hit OK. And this is going to give me a unique list of my lead sources. Now, the next thing I want is sales revenue, and I want to sum it by each of these lead sources. However, I only want to do this if it's within the date ranges of my period selector. So to do this, we need to create a new sumifs formula here. So what we're going to do is we're going to type equals sumifs, and we want to sum sales revenue if the lead source here matches this lead source and the date here is greater than or equal to the date selector here and the date here is less than, forgot our quotes here, is less than or equal to the date here. So what this is saying is that my sales dollars for the lead source newspaper during the period of January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024 is $440,483. And if I go back to my dashboard tab and I change this to last month and go back to our data tab, you'll see that now this data column over here is dynamic to our date selector on the dashboard. So now all I got to do is copy this data down, and I'm just going to lock some things first. And I want that to stay in column L. But I want it to go down. We'll lock this up. And dashboard D6, we can lock that up. Lock this up. And dashboard D7, we'll lock that. And now we should be able to copy this down. And there we go. And we'll go back to our dashboard and change this just to make sure everything is dynamic still. Here we have it added together, come up to the 1929792, which is equal to our total sales. So perfect. So now that we have this new data area here that is dynamic to our date selectors, now we can create a graph based off of this information. So what we'll do is we'll select this data here and we will do insert chart, and you'll see it's already done sales revenue by lead source, and it's already put it in a column chart for us, which is exactly what we want. And if I click this and move it over here, and I close this for now, I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to press copy and go to our dashboard tab, and I'm going to press paste here. Move it down to the section that we want, try to center that there. And we need some extra space here, so we're going to add a few rows of our blue. We'll do that on the other side as well. And let's come up to our date selector and let's change this to last month, and you'll see that it dynamically changed here. Let's go to last quarter, and you'll see that it changes as well. So now we have a graph for our sales revenue by lead source that is dynamic, just like the rest of our data. Now, if I wanted to, I could format this more to make it look exactly how I want. Like if I wanted to change this font to Roboto. Change it to our selected border color. Could bold our title there, make the text color this black, and that already looks a lot better. Maybe center this, and there we go. Just mess around with this color a little bit here until I find something I like. Maybe the light blue color, just so you can see it, but it's not too distracting. That might be too light, so let's actually change this. Try this one here. There we go. And now we'll put another graph over here, and let's go back here, and I'm going to make this smaller because this isn't for visuals. It's just how we created the chart here. Okay, so now I want to create another chart that does a similar thing, but instead of looking at the revenue by lead source, I want it to look at the expense by lead source. So if I find my lead cost formula here, which is column C, I can simply update my new data set to sum the cost instead of the revenue, and I'll just copy that down. And now what I can do is I can create a new chart. So we'll select our data there, and we'll do insert chart, and again we'll do a column chart there. We'll move this over here, and we'll just copy this chart here, and we'll go to our dashboard tab and we'll paste that in. We'll bring that down. Center that there. We're going to do some similar customizations to this one. So we're going to change our font there, and we'll change our text color there, and we'll bold it, and we'll center that there. And we'll change this one to say sales expense by lead source. And we'll come down to our grid lines here, and we'll try to make those a similar color as we did the other ones, like this blue here. And there we go. So if I zoom out so we can see the whole thing here, we can see that we have a completely dynamic dashboard that looks amazing, and we can change these to different dates, and the whole thing is updating dynamically. And there we go. We got some good variation in our expense and revenue. And now with a dashboard like this, we can make some great decisions on our marketing because now we have good data to work from. And it's visually appealing if we want to present this to others. Guys, if you want a copy of this spreadsheet, you can grab a copy of it down in the description of this video. And thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.